Welcome to Naija Trending News. So no be me go talk and finish. See the video here, make una watch am. But before that, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share the video, comment your comment, dey very important. Now this place now we dey bring una ogbonge news.
ATM has called for an investigation into the legal status of Miss South Africa. Chidimma Adetshina, a 23-year-old law student who was born in Soweto and lives in Cape Town, was announced on the 1st of July as one of the contestants in the running to represent South Africa at the Miss Universe pageant. She made it to the top 16. Eligibility requirements are as follows. Miss South Africa entrants must be South African citizens and in possession of a valid South African ID document or passport. If an applicant holds dual citizenship, they must provide details of both on the entry form. The competition has said that Vanessa met all the requirements to enter. However, that has not mitigated heated debate on her participation in particular, even though there are ethnically European, Chinese, and Indian participants who also entered the competition and made it to the top 30. The competition is now at the top 10 stage. Previous winners have included Megan Coleman in 2006. Coleman is an Irish surname. Vanessa Carrera in 2001. This is a Portuguese ethnic surname. And Melinda Bam, whose family is of German origin. ATM has now called for an investigation as this controversy continues to occupy the media space, the social media space. And for those who are watching from outside South Africa, ATM stands for African Transformation Movement, and it is a political party that is represented in the Parliament of South Africa. This is what their letter says. Clarification on the citizenship status of Chidimma Adetshina, a matter of public interest. Dear Honorable Minister, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to you regarding the matter of public interest surrounding Chidimma Adetshina, a contestant in the Miss South Africa pageant. There has been significant public discourse and concern regarding her citizenship status, which requires urgent clarification from the Department of Home Affairs. Specifically, the public needs answers to the following questions. Number 1, where were Chidimma's parents born? Number 2, is Chidimma a South African citizen? Number 3, were Chidimma's parents South African citizens at the time of her birth? Number 4, if both her parents were not born in South Africa, how did she and her parents obtain South African citizenship? Number 5, if not, did Home Affairs issue a notice of birth to her parents? Number 6, if Chidimma's parents are naturalized citizens, has Home Affairs verified their original applications? Number 7, it is further alleged that Chidimma was born in 2001, yet her parents allegedly only obtained their working visas in 2010. How did she get her citizenship, and who are the officers who signed off on the matter? The department's timely response to these questions is crucial in addressing the speculation and confusion currently circulating online. It is within the department's capacity and responsibility to investigate and provide clarity on this matter, ensuring that public confidence is maintained. Furthermore, I would like to address the accusations of xenophobia that have arisen in this context. South Africans are not xenophobic. On the contrary, we are arguably the most integrated country on the continent where people from diverse backgrounds coexist peacefully, provided they are here legally and abide by the law. Every time we address criminality involving foreign nationals, we are mislabeled as xenophobic. This is a mischaracterization that we firmly reject. Your prompt action and transparency on this matter will help put an end to the unwarranted speculation and foster a more informed and respectful dialogue. Regards, Vuyo Zungula, Member of Parliament, ATM President. The economic freedom fighters have also given a view on this particular issue. Julius Malema and the EFF have defended the Miss South Africa contestant Chidimma Adetshina, and this is what Julius Malema said at Rhodes University this week during an SRSC event there.
What you are, and we're told nothing will come from you. Today, you look at a fellow African, you listen to the pronunciation of a fellow African, you listen to the name and the surname of a fellow African, and by that you isolate them. You look at them and say, these are not South Africans. These are Nigerians. This can be Miss South Africa. This can be that. Maar Viljoen can be a player of rugby, South Africa, and get celebrated. No one will dare to question, where does this name of Viljoen come from? Because we've been made to celebrate that which looks down at us. Anything that looks like you hate. Anything that sounds different from you hate. You know, comrades, the concept makwere comes from the tribalists who could not hear the other ones. When you speak, the tribalists, they say they don't hear you, but utin kwereza. Because they can't hear your language. When you speak, they hear so you can't use that. You can't use that to want to rule out individuals. Comrades, we are hated everywhere else in the world. Everywhere else where black people are found. It doesn't matter their accent. They can speak the best English they want to speak, best accent. As long as the color of their skin looks like mine, they will be isolated. You get isolated to a point where even when you go to China, a young person who has never been exposed to a black person, when they see you, they start trying to clean you. But it looks like you are dirty. Because that's how we're being looked at. So where do we get the privilege with so much hate happening against us? Where do we get the privilege to hate on each other? If the unity of Africa is not important, why are they fighting against it so much? If it was this useless thing that has got no meaning, why is there such a big fight? They know that the only way they could conquer Africa, they had to divide it. They divided Africa. They gave it to all types of countries to manage. Our coming together is a threat to Europe. It's a threat to America. Our coming together, it means one currency backed by our mineral resources. And that currency will be against the dollar. And it will be more powerful than the dollar. Our coming together means one parliament, which means there will never be pockets of dictators who take over governments in Africa through a barrel of a gun. Why? There is one body which makes laws for the whole of African continent. There are no separate laws. There is one president for the whole of Africa. There is one military command in the whole of Africa. When they say they are rebels at the border of Rwanda and DRC, we call on the African command to go and make peace at that part of Africa without asking for the UN to come and help us. The unity of Africa will mean that there will never be a company called PRASA which will die. Because PRASA will be extended to the whole African continent. We'll make sure we build railway lanes and deliver our people everywhere. Why should Eskom struggle when there are lots of parts in the Eastern Cape, South Africa, and all over Africa without electricity? Eskom can give electricity to all of these people. And where do they buy it from? From Eskom. Who owns Eskom? It's us. We don't want, we want borders. Why do you want border? We don't want to sell electricity there. And then come back and say, we are unemployed. The higher demand, the more jobs we are going to create for this economy. Eskom can, if you don't want to go into the whole of Africa, you can give the whole of Southern Africa, which was colonized by one person, Cecil John Rhodes. He managed the whole SADC alone. Why are we failing to manage the whole SADC ourselves? Not through colonialism, by providing services to them, by allowing free movements of goods and persons, and by allowing one African passport. People say, Malema says, borderless Africa, he wants people without documents. How can he want people without documents when he's got documents himself? Because it's supposed to start with me. If we are in a struggle for not having documents, we must do like Mandela did and go and ban these IDs. One continental passport means that we must all be documented, and there must be an African system on where do we find each other. You can't commit crime here and run to Swaziland. We will find you because we've got an integrated system of Africa. So fighters, we have a duty to educate these people who hear the message, by the way, but still want to behave like they don't hear us. Why? Because the division of our continent benefit the imperialist forces. So
Gayton McKenzie, the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture and the President of the Patriotic Alliance Party, has questioned her claims of naturalization and also claims that she is a citizenship by birth, and basically questioned whether she's a South African citizen. He has also questioned if she is proudly South African, and also if the whole Miss South Africa competition should fall under a private company or under his department. He has cast aspersions on the veracity of her documentation, and these are some of the things that he has said in respect to this particular issue.
The 66th edition of Miss SA, 10th of August, Sunbet Arena, is happening.
Right.
Do you have your invitation?
No.
Are you going?
Well, I can't go if I'm not invited. It's not a department that falls directly under us. There's still a big dispute.
Yeah.
It's a private company holding Miss South Africa.
Should that change?
Yeah, I think there should be nothing here that we cannot negotiate. I haven't had a chance to look at and say, do we need this? Do we need this? We've never had a situation like the one we're having now.
Yeah.
With Miss Vanessa.
So with that, and again, remember pre-elections, hey, Abahambe, and then you coming back from Paris and saying, hey, we can't have a Nigerian competing in Miss SA. Do you still hold those views?
100%. The views I held before election, I'm holding it stronger now. Post-election. My pre-election views has not changed because of being a minister. I still believe you have to be documented when you come into South Africa. I still believe that's not Gayton, that's the law. And if you are not documented, you should Abahambe, you should leave. You know, people that say to me, yeah, you are xenophobic. I said, until they kill your child, and then we can't find the person because the person is undocumented. The issue of the young lady is, for me, I was asked upon landing.
Yes.
What do you think of the lady? I said, listen, number one, I don't have all the facts. That was my first thing I said. I tweeted, I said, I don't have all the facts. But what I do know, and in 2068, I will still hold the view that no Nigerian, no Zimbabwean, no Italian, no American should become Mr. South Africa. Miss South Africa. Why then? There's Miss World for those things. There's Miss Universe for those things. But South Africa, Miss South Africa is an ambassador of the country. Is a person that will export our culture. Is a person that will export our way of life to the world. Is a person that will go and make sure people want to visit our country. All I'm saying is that I've seen videos, number one, where she's celebrating, and there's nothing wrong celebrating with a lot of Nigerians. But when your father goes on the radio and he says that he met your mom in 2010, and then she fell pregnant in 2010, that makes you 14 years old. The father said, and at the end of the interview, the father was asked, do you see your daughter South African or Nigerian? The father said on the interview, I see her as Nigerian. I listened to it.
Right.
Now, I am not wanting to cast any aspersions, but that gives a bit of vibes. If my father was being asked, what am I? And I've got no business representing Mr. South Africa, because my father says I'm not South African. But if the lady, people must not mistake if you are born in South Africa that you are South African. A human being born, a cow being born in a horse stable doesn't make you a horse, and that is the law.
So what would you like to see? Because that is literally next weekend.
I would like to see. I would not like to go the route that it is taking now. I would like to see a more amicable atmosphere surrounding this thing. At the moment, all we're asking for is, please give us, please answer our questions. It's not enough when they say one thing and the parents say another thing in the interview. It will be a travesty of justice. There's no South African that can represent America. Why do we allow things? And I'm not even saying she's Nigerian. But if you ask me today, are you South African? I'm going to say yes. particularly when I'm going to represent South Africa, I need to give. We can't just be told by private people that is getting a lot of mileage out of this thing and South Africa is getting a lot of mileage. They say, no, she's South African. The deputy minister came on TV and he explained the situation. So we are now following the correct channels. And if she's South African, I will be the first to apologize and say, if you feel that I've cast any aspersion on you, as the minister, I would like to apologize. But if she's not South African, she cannot represent us.
She can't go on stage, for example, because at the stage, she has to be part of the pageant.
She doesn't have to. Why do you mean she has to?
No, but according to the rules that they have. So that's why I was saying that for you, what would you like to see?
Corporate South Africa can't write the rules that governs us. That's the first thing we must understand. Corporate South Africa has rules in King 1, King 2, King 3, the Companies Act. But they can't tell us we are satisfied with her. Then they should get another name for this pageant. Because this is South Africa we're talking about. Imagine it is being found out, the embarrassment to South Africa, if it is being found out that this woman is not South African. It is humiliating us again on the national stage to say, look, we had a humiliation the other time.
With the Obama and the translator.
I am going right there.
Yeah.
It was a joke. Wherever you go, people are saying...
The sign language, yeah.
The sign language guy. We were made jokes. People were saying that we were the joke of the world. Now, my job as a minister is not only to wanting to be nasty or whatever. No, that's not my job. My job is not to be nasty to people. My job is to make sure that we don't get humiliated. And you know what's the worst part? If she proves to be Nigerian, she's robbing a South African of a chance. Why are we, Stevie, wonder about the fact that there is some vibes here? The father says that. The father said, I met the
mother. The story doesn't tell up.
The story doesn't add up. The SA does not fall under us. But I do think, because this is a national, if you use the national name of the country, I do think there should be some regulation first. And I'm going to work from tomorrow that it needs to be regulated. Because once you say Miss SA, you represent the country. So, but we're going to engage the organizers of Miss SA. They made contact today. We will be having a meeting with them this week, where we now get final answers. What South Africa must understand is that, and this is really something I hope people can listen, is that when you are a politician, you didn't come there because you passed a certain exam. You were sent there by the people. If those people feel they are unhappy about anything, they speak to you. And I'm saying to South Africans, South Africa is not just about, oh, I'm born in South Africa. You must love our culture. You must be ambassador for South Africa. Nigeria has an ambassador there at the event. So we need a South African ambassador. And the young lady, we've got nothing against the young lady, but there are some questions that the people want answers to. But whenever people ask questions in this country, then they are being called xenophobic. They are being called all those type of names.
The Democratic Alliance Minister of Home Affairs, Leon Schreiber, has also been asked about this particular issue. He has stated that he cannot do something unlawful and that at the time at which he was doing the interview, no formal complaint or request for investigation had been raised with his office. He said, however, that the family had given the go-ahead for her status to be clarified by the department and that they will be doing so soon. This is some of what he had to say when he did an interview with Newsroom Africa.
There's one story, Minister, that's dominated headlines, and it's that of the Miss South Africa contestant. What is there any update, perhaps?
Yeah.
Is the best way to prompt this question. Is there any update as to her status in the country? She was born in South Africa. Or should we look at the status of her parents as citizens of this country? What can you tell us?
Well, I mean, look, if you look at the law, it's pretty clear that if indeed a mother is born in South Africa, then and she's born in South Africa, then those are South Africans. However, what I would like to emphasize is that Home Affairs, one of the challenges we've had in recent years is all these court cases that have rolled against the department that you'll be aware of. And I have been very clear that we have to get back to the rule of law. And in fact, it's even in the GNU Statement of Intent that we have to anchor our decisions in the rule of law. So the one thing we will not do is when there's an uproar about a particular individual, but there's no actual matter before Home Affairs, we cannot go and violate the Protection of Personal Information Act. Because if someone comes to me and makes an allegation against you, without any evidence, and suddenly a lot of people repeat that allegation, it would be a violation of your rights in terms of the Poppy Act for me to then go and say, but here's his papers, here's his nationality. So that's the one side. So I think it's been clear from Home Affairs that we are not going to be dragged into innuendos, rumors, and quite vicious episodes that we see on social media. However, there has been a development in the sense that people actually related to the matter have asked us to help put this matter to bed by verifying some of this information. Now, that is how it is supposed to work. If you have a complaint against someone, you bring prima facie evidence, because remember, the onus is on you to bring a complaint. You bring prima facie evidence to our counter-corruption unit, for example, and we will investigate the matter. That did not happen. There has not been a single actual complaint with actual evidence. Not one. Wow. The only thing we've received are people related to this individual saying, can you please bring an end to this by verifying the information? So we will update the public once we've done that. But I do want to make it very clear. We are doing so with the consent of the individuals involved. We are doing so because they approached us, and we will not violate Poppy, undermine the rule of law in cases where people don't bring evidence or don't bring such proper applications. And I think you saw that over the past few days. And I know there was a lot of noise and a lot of people were shouting, do this, do that. That's not how it works in a country with the rule of law. We have a democratically elected government that's supposed to abide by the Constitution and all the laws, including the Poppy Act. We cannot be governed by social media, and we've seen some of the results of that over the years.
The Democratic Alliance minister's response is likely what has led to the ATM party sending this letter. It is very surprising that after all that has been said over the last few weeks, that no one had actually filed any complaint or requested an investigation into the matter. It seems from what the minister has said that the first person to request this matter to be clarified to the public was Chidimma herself. And this now action by the African Transformation Movement then makes this the first formal request from a political party or entity for an investigation into this matter. You must recall that members of parliament have a lot of powers to get transparency and accountability. And one of those powers is actually sending letters to ministers and requesting answers in respect to those particular questions. I think it is true that the matter is now in the public interest. As a celebrity, you don't always have the luxury of privacy, and many aspects of your life will be examined. We know too much about Mihlali, for example, and her relationship with Leroy Sidambe. The same could be said of Minnie Dlamini. The same could be said of Cassper Nyovest and several other celebrities who are in the public eye and whose lives are examined consistently by the public. I think due to the nature of the issues being raised about Ms. Chidimma, it is in everyone's interest for the issue of her status to be disclosed. An example that comes to mind is the Barack Obama birth certificate. Barack Obama is an American citizen who was elected to be the president of the United States of America. You should know that, unless, of course, you have been in a coma since 2006 and this is the first YouTube video that you're watching. If that's you, thank you for finding this video and participating in this conversation. But I know most of you are aware of who Barack Obama is. His mother was an American citizen and his father was a Kenyan. His parents met at a university when they were both studying. They had a relationship, and during the course of that relationship, Barack Obama was born. He was born in Honolulu and his mother raised him in Hawaii. She raised him in Seattle and also in Indonesia. From the age of 10, he lived continuously in America. Unfortunately, a dark rumor was raised about his nationality and the veracity of his birth certificate. The rumor about the Barack Obama birth certificate was racist. The rumor about the Barack Obama birth certificate was xenophobic. It was also political opportunism by several prominent business figures and by voices in the right-wing media. Barack Obama had to release his birth certificate to the public to put to rest all of these allegations and insinuations because they were not going away. Because even though it was unfair and unwarranted to him at that particular point, it was now important for him to put that issue to bed. At this point, we just have to wait for the final clearance from the Department of Home Affairs on the matter of citizenship. This will settle questions of fact about this particular case. Having said that, it's important to recognize that people are having different discussions about Miss South Africa. One group of people is having a conversation about legality and citizenship. This group of people is asking the question, what is her status in terms of the law? That is one conversation that is happening, and this is something that is called in law a question of fact. It is ascertainable through an investigation or verification. Some people will walk away from this conversation once they get an answer. If that answer, for instance, is that she is a citizen and all of her paperwork is in order. Another group of people is having a conversation about representation. They are asking who ought to represent a nation state and should that person meet the criteria for country ambassadorship. For example, they are asking questions like, are you proud of the South African flag? Are you somebody who shares common practices, experiences, and cultural values with other South Africans? That is the second thread of the conversation. It's not clear if this question has been extended by the same people to other contestants who have different ethnic backgrounds. For example, Sherry Wang, who made it to the top 30, appears to have Asian ethnic identity, and she was not questioned by the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture in respect to where her loyalties lie. It is not clear if they've always had this view as well, the people who are raising this question about who is the right ambassador to represent the country at a modeling competition. It's not clear if they've had this question about other winners who are from European and Asian backgrounds. The conversation around who is the best ambassador to represent the country at the competition is around national identity, right? The conversation around national identity is about who can call themselves part of the group and who cannot call themselves part of the group. The group of obviously in question in this conversation is South Africa. Who gets to call themselves South African? Right? Various people do call themselves part of the group. For example, people who are from the Netherlands, people who are from the United Kingdom, people who are from Germany, and typically you can see this kind of expression and its diverse manifestations during a rugby game. Whether that rugby game is happening in France or in the UK, you will see a variety of people who identify as South African, who may be from European backgrounds, Asian backgrounds, etc. You can also see different manifestations of South African identity in Parliament. For example, some members of Parliament and party leaders are from families which come from Germany. Some have families which come from the United Kingdom, some which come from Italy. Some members of parliament are actually some members of parliament were naturalized citizens from China. There was a member of parliament from the ANC who came from China, was born in China, was a naturalized South African, and became a member of the of parliament for the African National Congress. Some members of parliament have got family which come from neighboring African countries in one shape or form, and maybe not immediately, but over a few generations, you can see that, okay, these surnames originate from different parts of Africa. So this is a strand and a different strand of the conversation that people are having in who gets to be a representative, an ambassador, somebody who gets to use that label, right? South African. There's also a discussion that is happening around how Africans ought to identify as a collective and whether or not they ought to identify as a collective at all. Should they identify with other Africans or should they not identify with other Africans? This is part of the Pan-African conversations. Some politicians are saying that because Africa as an entity has shared values, shared history, shared genetic identities, and in often spaces you'll find that tribes actually are located in different parts of the border. For instance, the Tswana are located in Botswana as well as in South Africa. For instance, Basotho are located in Lesotho as well as in South Africa. For instance, Swatis are located in South Africa as well as Eswatini. For example, there are some other tribes where if you look at the Zulu tribe and its spin-offs, you will find that the Zulu tribe can extend all the way to Tanzania. And if you recall, when the king was is it inaugurated? What do they call it? Coronated? When the coronation of the king occurred, the Zulu king, you found that there were many different Zulu tribes or sub-tribes, if you will, which attended that particular coronation and spoke about the Zulu kingdom and their identity as Zulus. So the conversation around the African identity really focuses on the fact that Africa was divided arbitrarily by a bunch of Europeans for economic gain in 1884 in what is known as the Scramble for Africa, and that some of the ideas of nation state that exist now were created simply by the division of Africa into pizza slices of weird shapes and formations by colonialists, by racists, in that period of time. And therefore, the ideas of nation state should not supersede the ideas of African solidarity and commonality. This is another strand of the conversation. And this conversation also taps into the ideas that there has been a Pan-African movement which was critical in the liberation of African states. It is known by now that there were ANC activists who were in Morogoro in Tanzania, ANC activists who were operating from Zambia, and also that there were various African nations providing support to the African National Congress, to the Pan-Africanist Congress, and also as the quest for liberation of Africa was building up in the early 1900s, there was a large movement of Pan-Africanists to actually push for European countries to give African nations independence. And post that, the Organization of African Unity was formed in 1963 with the quest for further independence, solidarity of Africa, and that right now Africa has created this African Continental Free Trade Area, which seeks to create more intra-African trade so that African economies can benefit, because a lot of African economies, including South Africa, are not exporting finished products to each other, and a lot of trade is still happening between Africa and China, Africa and Europe, Africa and America, and that often is for African unprocessed resources, while we are receiving finished products, iPhones, cars, microwaves, fridges, and all of these other entities. So there's a conversation that is happening around the Pan-African side of the discussion, insofar as there are differences of opinion on how people should identify. And some politicians are having multiple strands of conversation at the same time, and that is creating a lot of conflation in this particular conversation. But it's important to recognize that this conversation is not only happening in the South African space, it is happening in many other spaces and places along similar lines, and sometimes along hateful and divisive lines. We recently saw that there were riots and looting in the United Kingdom as right-wing groups protested against the presence of immigrants in their communities. Some were protesting against undocumented migrants, but others were profiling people and attacking black people from Africa, right? Even those who have legal status in the United Kingdom. They were not checking for paperwork. They were simply presuming, based on how you appear, that you are not supposed to be in the United Kingdom. And this is what one of the people from those communities had to say.
But I have to say, I used to live in Sheffield. I grew up in Sheffield. We lived in Rotherham for about 3 months when I was younger. If I was living in that town now, would I feel safe just to be going to the shops? Because when you're pulling people out of the cars, as they detailed in the Metro, they're just pulling them based on skin colour. Mm-hmm. I was born in this country. They're not checking people's passports. They've no idea whether these people are born here, raised here, not born here, whether they're an immigrant or not. Not that that actually matters. But the fact is, what's happening now is that on site, they're looking at people and saying, you don't belong here.
Well, one of the problems is also social media. So that's another aspect of the televised statement that Keir Starmer addressed, is it isn't just about the thugs who are doing these things and they need to feel the full force of the law. But we're very imitative creatures as human beings. We learn about the world by copying other people. And when we see other people doing things, our instinct is to follow. That makes us feel safe. We're not. It's very hard to be the one that doesn't follow the crowd. And one of the reasons why we've got such a widespread ripple effect of all of these copycat riots is because they're seeing the material on social media, and it is just literally whipping around the country.
Other politicians are also having a conversation about illegal immigration at the same time that this conversation about Miss South Africa is happening. The conversation about illegal immigration is concerned about the number of undocumented migrants who are living in South Africa and all of the issues that arise as a result of an increase in that number of undocumented migrants. We know that the number of undocumented migrants, or rather the number of foreign-born nationals living in South Africa, has gone up from 1 million in 2001 to 2.4 million, according to Statistics South Africa in 2022. We also know from that same data from Statistics South Africa that the top countries contributing to the migrant communities in South Africa are Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Lesotho, Malawi, and the United Kingdom. In the top 10, you'll also find countries such as Germany. We know as well that there have been some issues of fraud at the Department of Home Affairs, where people have been issued South African birth certificates and or passports fraudulently. A recent example is that of Judy Zuma, a former Home Affairs official who was sentenced to an effective 12 years imprisonment this week. She was part of a syndicate which delivered fraudulent passports for money to foreign nationals who did not qualify for the documents. Judy Zuma was found to have processed 192 passports between 28 May and 12 June 2021 for foreign nationals who did not qualify to have them. She was paid 4,000 Rand for each passport, and she left the Department of Home Affairs in 2021 following an internal disciplinary process. It may very well be that she would have processed maybe even more than this 192 passports at the time that she was in that particular office, and now she's serving a sentence of 12 years imprisonment. At the same time, we know that there are perceptions that rightly or wrongly do exist about Nigerian diaspora communities in particular. These perceptions stem back to emails from a Nigerian prince asking for help, monetary help, so that you can help him and then you get a certain amount of money. These perceptions are sometimes fed by activities of small groups of Nigerian diaspora in the criminal underworld in many parts of the world. These perceptions also feed into this particular conversation around Chidimma in particular, and may explain why there is skepticism of her citizenship from people who are following this matter. We know as well that there are some who have a sense of rivalry between South Africa and Nigeria. Some people view this rivalry simply as frivolous and fun commentary online about music, debates about amapiano, Afrobeats, about sports, whether it's soccer and performances at the CAF competition and other competitions such as the Olympics. There are people who, however, view this rivalry in more serious tones and have genuine resentment and animosity towards members of the Nigerian community, be they in South Africa, United Kingdom, and other parts of the world. There was a documentary that was done by the BBC, and one of the clips there that just became an internet moment in and of itself was one where a lady professed her deep hatred for Nigerian nationals. This is what she said.
To tell you the truth, I hate foreigners. I hate foreigners, and the government is doing nothing. Being a single mother, seeing your son like this, I hate foreigners. How I wish they can just pick and go and leave our country. You just leave our country. Our kids have turned into zombies. It's all because of...
All this is what makes this conversation very complex, very difficult, because it is not happening in one dimension and it is not happening in one form from one set of motives. I want to ask, where do you currently stand on the issue of Chidimma Vanessa Adetshina and her participation in the Miss South Africa competition? Do you think that a modeling competition has the same levels of ambassadorship as a diplomatic position? Do you think that pure South Africans should be the ones who participate in that competition? What is a pure South African? In sporting codes, for example, many athletes like Tendai Mtawarira have represented South Africa. Is there a difference between a sporting code and a modeling competition? Do you think the skepticism towards Adetshina is justified due to the issues that have been raised about corruption at Home Affairs and issues that have been raised about actions by some members of the Nigerian community? Let's have a conversation. This is a very charged topic, so let's try to keep the conversation factual and diplomatic. People have different views for valid reasons, but we can't talk to each other if we are shouting at each other, insulting each other, or ignoring each other. We can't reason with each other about difficult questions facing South Africa, facing Africa, facing the world, if we don't adopt a decorum that allows for us to have those conversations. Thank you so much for watching to this particular part of the video. I'm going to do a follow-up video at a later stage looking at the different theories that exist around the diversification that is happening in different countries as a result of immigration. Just as I was about to upload this video, there was a major development in the story. And this development has complications which could see this case going to the Constitutional Court, see a variety of people being arrested, and also actually see this conversation actually getting even bigger. And I'm going to tell you what that development is right now. The Home Affairs has released a statement, and the statement is titled, Ongoing Home Affairs Investigation Finds Prima Facie Indications of Fraud Committed by Chidimma Adetshina's mother. The Department of Home Affairs herewith provides an update of the ongoing investigation into the citizenship of Chidimma Adetshina, a contestant in the upcoming Miss South Africa event. The reason for the ongoing nature of the investigation is that its scope has broadened since the original request received from the organizers of Miss South Africa based on the information uncovered by Home Affairs investigations thus far. The department nonetheless provides this public update based on the official request received from Miss South Africa, as well as the consent provided by both the contestant and her mother. We will provide a final update once the investigation is concluded. On Monday, 5 August 2024, the organizers of the event sent the department a request to verify the citizenship of a contestant, Chidimma Adetshina. This request was accompanied by written consent from both Adetshina and her mother. Upon receiving this request, the department deployed every resource at its disposal to establish the truth. This has included archival research, visits to hospitals, and site visits to verify information. From the information we have uncovered thus far, the Department of Home Affairs can indicate that 1. Prima facie reasons exist to believe that fraud and identity theft may have been committed by the person recorded in Home Affairs records as Chidimma Adetshina's mother. 2. Adetshina could not have participated in the alleged unlawful actions of her mother, as she was an infant at the time when the activities took place in 2001. 3. An innocent South African mother whose identity may have been stolen as part of the alleged fraud committed by Adetshina's mother suffered as a result because she could not register her child. 4. The department has broadened its investigation to identify and pursue any officials involved in the alleged fraudulent scheme and is obtaining legal advice on the implications of the alleged fraudulent activity on Adetshina's citizenship status. And 5. Upon completion of the investigation, Home Affairs intends to press criminal charges against all implicated parties. There are ongoing engagements with all stakeholders, including Adetshina's mother. The case, which stems from alleged fraudulent activities committed 23 years ago, highlights the urgent need for the digital modernization of Home Affairs applications, adjudication, and verification processes to insulate the department against fraudulent interference, similar to the reforms undertaken at the South African Revenue Service in the late 2000s. This case also highlights the reason for the department's blocking of certain duplicate IDs and that the court-ordered unblocking of these documents must be handled with caution. Throughout the process, Home Affairs is guided by our commitment to both restoring and upholding the rule of law as well as the rights of all parties. Issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So this is a serious development, and it does indicate that Gayton McKenzie, ATM, and other people who are raising this issue and raising concerns about corruption, fraud, were actually correct to raise those concerns in this particular instance, and that they have been vindicated for asking questions specific to gaps in the story that was given, or gaps that they perceived in the story that was given by Adetshina, especially around her mother's citizenship status. There was a point when it was being said that her mother was Zulu, but that was never fully clarified and committed to, and now we have this clarification. It's also important just to note that prima facie does indicate a serious level of evidence existing. You remember the Section 89 committee also said that they had a prima facie, view that President Cyril Ramaphosa had actually broken the law at the Phala farm. So prima facie is not light, but however, prima facie is not something that has been tested in a court of law and something that has been tested at the right level of scrutiny for there to be a prosecution. So this is where things stand right now, and I think she's going to have to pull out of the competition. I think that is the right thing for her to do, because at some level she does not meet the criteria. I think her mother is going to have to face justice and come clean about what she did and did not do. I think that's important also for it to happen. And her mother has to issue an apology for all of this. Because if her mother is the one who did it and everyone else didn't know, then it rests upon the mother. And if the father knew as well, he has to also be held accountable. I think that's the correct thing to do. There is something that is going to be a constitutional matter going forward. Under international law, under human rights law, nobody can be stateless. So if Chidimma has only ever had South African citizenship, that means that if you withdraw that citizenship from her, she didn't do anything to commit this offense, and all her life she has lived under the assumption, if she was never informed, that she's South African. If she didn't know, even if she did know, right, she is an innocent party to a large extent. She didn't do this. She was born into it. Then the question then becomes, what happens to her? What happens to her citizenship? Will the government of Nigeria offer her citizenship? Will the government of Mozambique offer her citizenship? Where else is she eligible? But right now, as things stand, and this is why Home Affairs has said she's an innocent party, and it's going to cause a lot of issues. You may find that if her citizenship is just revoked and she becomes stateless, she can sue and win because she has a right as a member of the human race to status. And these are the international accords that were signed by all of the countries. And she has to have some kind of status. Now the question is, what status? This case has brought a lot to the forefront. Some of the stuff that I discussed earlier in the video. And there's going to be more that unfolds. I think even though she's innocent, she must withdraw from the competition. I think it's the only right thing to do, because now you know. Now you know your status. And you know that you don't meet the criteria. Even at a moral level, something wrong was done to get you into the competition. Even if you didn't do the wrong thing, you should withdraw. That's what I think. I don't know what you guys think, but this is all the time we have for today. I'm going to be in the comments having conversations with you. Thanks so much for watching.